Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, everyone. My name is Isabelle, and I'm the manager of the Social Good Summit. I'm here with Pascal Bernard, le responsable Région Genève de Crédit Suisse, and we are both delighted to welcome you in this beautiful venue, thanks to Crédit Suisse. This is the third edition of the Social Good Summit. I hope you're going to have a great time and you will enjoy it as much as we have enjoyed the last two editions.
Oui, alors moi je vais dire quelques mots en français, vous allez entendre parler d'anglais toute la journée, donc je me permets de faire ça comme ça. Non, un grand plaisir de vous recevoir ici au Crédit Suisse Forum, au nom du Crédit Suisse. J'espère que cette journée va bien se passer avec tous ces partenaires, ces tables rondes importantes, ces panels qui vont être absolument très intéressants pour vous toutes et nous tous. Et je vous remercie en tout cas d'avoir fait le déplacement ici pour cette journée qui va être extrêmement intéressante. Donc merci beaucoup et bonne journée.
Let me give the floor now to Maria Luisa Silva, UNDP Geneva Director. If you could come, and I will also invite the panelists, Barsky, Isabelle Durant, and Laurent Douek from SAP. If you could all come and join me on the stage.
So, good morning, everybody. I'm very pleased to welcome you all to this third edition of the Social Good Summit Geneva. As Sarah was saying, in UNDP, we are really excited about the interest of so many of you joining us today here, which in our view is, on the one hand, a clear sign of your commitment to sustainable development, but also of how the Social Good Summit Geneva is gradually finding its audience and its niche. When we started the Social Good Summit and as a development operational agency focused on solutions and on doing things, our main motivation was to see whether we could leverage the interest of financial Geneva in impact investment with innovation potential coming from developing countries. And I think that today we can easily say that the summit has grown into an innovation springboard where promising social entrepreneurs from around the world showcase their solutions for SDG attainment with investors and partners. And let me say that it's very important to underline that these are not any kind of business solutions. These are business solutions that have been screened for their potential for positive impact. So investing in them will not only scale up their business, but will also be contributing to the future the world imagined and committed when 3 years ago, heads of state and government in New York signed to the social development goals. And they did so because indeed we need to leapfrog innovation to meet the greatest civilizational challenges of our times: climate change, employment, artificial intelligence, maybe migration, many others, but also because this will allow us to tap into the huge market opportunities that SDG alignment investments can also create. And let me here recall the recent Better Business, Better World report of the Business and Sustainable Development Commission that told us that achieving the Sustainable Development Goals will create between 12 trillion and 30 trillion of new market opportunities in food and agriculture, cities, energy and materials, and health and well-being, in addition to creating 380 million new jobs, 90% of them in developing countries where they are most needed. So we need to meet the financial gap. We need to provide the necessary investments because this provides opportunities, but we also need to meet the technical gap, because we know we're still not there in terms of standards, tools, and services that investors can rely on to support investments. And for this reason, in UNDP, our new administrator, Mr. Achim Steiner, had decided to take the challenge and had decided to embark the organization into a path where we will support empowering investors and businesses with the clarity, the insights, and the tools required to support and authenticate their contribution to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. And he will launch an initiative called SDG Impact in a new journey, putting the organization in a new journey where we'll be trying to contribute to the necessary impact management, impact intelligence, and impact facilitation. And I think the Social Good Summit is like perhaps one of these early attempts to move into impact facilitation, because what we are doing is we're matching business ideas with investors. So now, all this work is impossible to do alone. We know that. That's why we're all here coming from all different spheres and sectors. And that's why here with us are today in the opening remarks some of our key partners with whom we will be working in this along this way. Let me start with UNCTAD, the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, one of the key agencies in the United Nations that was the first one to quantify the costs of attaining the SDGs. They came us with this figure, $5 to $7 trillion that made us realize that official development assistance was not going to be enough, and that this was going to be a sort of a global endeavor by all society, private sector included. They are also hosting, as we speak, the World Investment Forum, which is a massive discussion with government and private sector from all around the world, and where obviously issues related to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals and the required investments are at the core of the agenda. But this is also one reason we are all the more pleased to have the Deputy Secretary General of UNCTAD with us here today. So Isabelle, Durant, you have the floor.
Thank you, Maria Luisa. So for those who don't know very well the UN, yes, applause, big applause. So for those who don't know very well the UN, welcome in the UN galaxy. So we are two different organizations but cooperating on a lot of issues, and especially the issue of course of the SDG, which is the issue of all the UN and all of you. It means that it's true that innovation and solution-oriented innovation is really the key thing in order to achieve those sustainable development goals. And in UNCTAD, we are working a lot, a little bit on a complementary manner as UNDP or others, in order to create opportunities and to support the governments, all the governments, especially in the developing countries, in order to do something a little bit more innovative, try to jump in the economy of the 21st century, which is not so easy for developing countries. And we are completely sure that innovation, sometimes on small scale in the beginning, could really help to find innovative solution for many, many things, in health, in education, in economy, in trade, in a lot of things. You are probably the combination between innovation and solution for development. And it's why it's so important for us for a long time to work also on the ground in technical assistance with not only government but also Chambre de Commerce and all the other actors, also with women, because we are thinking that women are probably a big force, underestimated and under supported in order to help the country to develop themselves. We are organizing this big event, World Investment Forum, just in the Palais, 500 meters from here. And maybe if we have time later, because it's until Friday, please, you are welcome, because it's really what you explain. The WIF wants to create a platform where investors could be there, and there are a lot of investors, private investors, but also SMEs, representative of export agencies, of course government, and it's why I cannot stay with you, because I have to welcome the president of Montenegro at 9:30, so I will not stay here. But I think that we are exactly in the good combination between you as innovator, creative people trying to start new ideas and give an economic value to those ideas, because it's good to have ideas, but at the end, of course, it has to become a project. The problem is sometimes that the investors are waiting for rentability on very short term, and it's why it's important to convince. I will do that this afternoon on medication or medicine for the resistance to antibiotics. So you know that antibiotics are now have some problems because many antibiotics develop a resistance to antibiotics. It's difficult to find investor to invest in that. Why? Because of course it's not very interesting if you fight against resistance to antibiotic. At the end, your market is decreasing. So it's why sometimes we have to convince the investors that invest in an investment on long term with something with the results later, but the results contributing to the SDG is also something very important. And I think that on that, it's one of the goals of this World Investment Forum. It's not only investment for investment, but investment for development. And sometimes development take time, so we have to give the chance to the innovators, to start, to receive enough trust and enough money to develop their own application or new ideas. So thank you for that, because UN is not very useful without you. Or we are very good to speak, speech, etc. But only speech is very not sufficient. So thank you for what you are doing. Thank you for your cooperation, and I hope that between UNCTAD, UNDP, and others, we could collaborate in this regard, because that's our common responsibility at the end. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Isabelle, for being here with us this morning. Let me now pass the floor to Dana Barsky. She's Chief Operating Officer and Head of Partnerships in Credit Suisse. We need to thank Credit Suisse for hosting us here today. But also Credit Suisse is a very important bank, is a very important actor in this discussion on impact. Dana, you have the floor.
I'll first clarify that I'm Chief Operating Officer of the Impact Advisory and Finance Department, not all of Credit Suisse. Maybe later. First, I just want to say it's a pleasure to be here among all of you and the United Nations. The fact that they developed these Sustainable Development Goals, I just think it just really frames the conversation that we're having here today. And I think they're actually quite elegant. But I also like to remember that behind each of these Sustainable Development Goals is really human lives. And you know, when you look at them all, I like to relate it to a human life. Sustainable Development Goal, I think one that we're going to touch on today is SDG 4, which is quality education. And there are 265 million children who are still not in school today. And there's 800 million people who cannot read. I mean, I don't know if you could imagine what their lives, how limited their lives might be if you couldn't read a book. And then another SDG we're going to talk about today is SDG 3, which is good health and well-being. And there are 500,000 children that die every year from diarrhea, simply because their parents aren't educated enough to know to give them water, and they ultimately die of dehydration. And so you can see a lot of these SDGs that we're going to touch on today, and we're going to hit a few of them, they're very interrelated. And the issues they're just huge. And philanthropy isn't enough. I think they touched on a number, 5 trillion. I think the number that we use is a 3.5 trillion annual funding gap to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. And philanthropy speaks for about $1 billion of that. So that leaves a 2.5, a trillion of that, that leaves a 2.5 trillion annual funding gap, which really needs to be solved from the private sector. And without the private sector, these lives will not be touched. And that was what the CEO of Credit Suisse had in mind when he formed our group. So it's the Impact Advisory and Finance Group. And our sole mission is to flood private capital to solve some of these sustainable development goals. It's really at the core of our CEO's belief system. He had spent time in his previous life as the head of minister and planning at the Côte d'Ivoire, and he truly does believe it, and it really comes across throughout our organization. And thanks to his vision, our department is really developing new ways to partner with individuals and family offices and corporations and institutions such as the United Nations to really encourage this private capital to come in across different asset classes and across different risk-return profiles. Also, another thing I'd like to touch on, another real core belief of Credit Suisse is the value of entrepreneurship. And we have studied it extensively. And some of our reports are in our booth out there, of what makes an entrepreneur successful. And two things that really came across are passion and ability to manage risk. And I suspect some of the entrepreneurs in this room today have some of those qualities. While you can't put value on education or health or human life, a single franc invested in the businesses you'll hear from today have a tremendous multiplier effect in society. For instance, a study by the OECD showed that a single dollar invested in female education would yield $9.90 to economic growth in a low-income country. I mean, that's a tremendous multiplier effect. And there are a lot of studies out there that show, and I truly believe, that investing with purpose is really just smart investing. And I will conclude by saying that our slogan at Credit Suisse is, progress is just a word until you make it happen. And so I would say, let's all have a great day and let's make it happen.
Thank you, Dana. And I think we will retain that Credit Suisse says that investment with purpose is a good investment. Thank you very much. I'd like to invite now Laurent Douek, Vice President of the Innovation Team in SAP, to also share with us some opening remarks. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. First of all, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the summit, and a big thank you to Sarah and her team for organizing this summit and mobilizing such a strong ecosystem around the SDGs. Who are we? So SAP is a global leader in enterprise software with more than 400,000 customers in 180 countries. What we do is basically we help companies run better. So why are we here? Why are we here at the summit in Geneva, and what's our vision? First of all, SAP is partnering with UNDP to deliver a global dashboard measuring private sector progress against the SDGs. We believe that economic growth goes along long-term sustainable growth, and we see that there is enormous business potential and opportunities around the SDGs. SAP, after being the champion of financial reporting, supply chain, customer experience, we believe that we will be also the champion of sustainable impact reporting and analytics. We're going to talk today a lot about aligning investment along the SDGs. So how can we achieve that? First of all, I believe that we need an ecosystem. We need a platform, network. We need a marketplace to bring, on one hand, great ideas, business opportunities, projects from entrepreneurs and startups, and on the other hand, investors, financial institutions, private sector, public bodies as well, to finance these projects. And that should be also the foundation for future collaboration, partnership, and coalition working jointly towards the SDGs. Second, technology. Technology is a key enabler for innovation. It also helps emerging countries to really leapfrog and make sustainable and substantial progress in their development. It also, from our point of view, technology also support our customers to recreate, like, and define new business model towards a more responsible type of venture. Finally, we need a scaling factor. Good idea and a good project will really have a big impact if it's scalable. And that's where we believe SAP has a role to play and must contribute in, among other players, of course, in leveraging its workforce, its technology, and its ecosystem of hundreds of thousands of customers and millions of partners to continue co-create, co-innovate in the future. So I'm looking forward to meeting you during the different sessions and as well as at our booth, where we can also showcase a few projects that we deliver in the area of SDGs. And yeah, let's meet, and thank you.